Here we go again, everyone, spending time together. So glad we could be together, and you chose to spend some time with me today. And I've been catching the news, of course, and maybe the rest of the world has, as we look at the royal family. Of course, there every bit about the royal families in the news, but I have a particular spot for Queen Elizabeth in my heart because I've studied her so much, and her passing, I knew it was coming. Everybody did, but it's funny the last few years. There's so many great people in history, but she's one that I said if there was ever a person, I maybe this is just me. If there's ever a person I'd like to meet Queen Elizabeth, and there's a reason for it, basically because she got to meet so many people. And it goes back, when she was before she was queen, she actually did play somewhat of a role when Hitler was the great, war when they were attacking, Britain, wanting to take over Britain. She was still playing a role in that, and playing, could have left, and ran and hid, but they stood, and she made a wonderful speech. And wherever she did go somewhere and make a speech, I remember, and someplace, and still that stability in her voice, even though she was just a girl or whatever age she was. And then, when she became queen at such a young age and has kept that stability. And that's the one thing. Do you feel, maybe I should just ask you your opinion of, we in our country right now, they have turmoil too, but there's a stability there in their turmoil because they just, they had a turnover of their prime minister and everything. But there's a stability in the United Kingdom that I don't feel we have here, that goes back to the royals, particularly their queen, who was the stability, not necessarily the rest of the family. But she just had a stability about her. And of course, like I said, then during the World War II, and she met Winston Churchill, which would be, if I had to choose between the two, it'd be rough if I could meet them. But she met him, had to work with him all the way through, I don't remember, maybe how many presidents we went through while she was queen, and she met all of them. In fact, she's met everybody. Everybody since she was queen, she met everybody there's anybody, and outlived most of them, and just through everything. And you know what, Zion, you know what I think it did too, when you saw the queen. And whatever we're going through, even though she's not our queen, she's their queen, but whatever you're going through, you saw her, and it was like, don't worry, we've been through this before, or don't worry, I've been through this before. We're going to make it, because she through everything from World War II, clear through every crisis you could think of, and just stayed stately and held her ground and kept the dignity of humanity all the way through, at least for us to see. And that meant a lot to me. So I really respect her, and still do. And what she left us, to say hi to a lot of people are coming in, with us now. Zion, we got Nathan and Chris and Valerie and Elnora and Vanessa are coming in saying hi to us. So glad you're with us. And we're going to talk about that, Queen Elizabeth and King Charles now. But I have a different take on it. You're not going to hear this very often from very many people in our country. I know, because I've mentioned it through the years occasionally. And I don't get Christians particularly, I don't get that they oppose it. I just get like, haven't really thought of it before. But now that you mention it, I'm kind of getting. So now, of course, now that Queen Elizabeth is gone, and her legacy now we live with, great legacy. Well, and by the way, I was there in England. I think, Zion, I think I was there when it was one of her birthdays, or how many years she'd been queen, or some big deal, and by Buckingham Palace and the bridge there, and they had all this fanfare and everything. It was really something to see. And I just happened to, and there's Michelle, I just happened to be there at the time, and it was really the all the fancy bands and everything, and hats and royalty. It was really something to see. And so, now that her legacy is here, now we have a king. His name's Charles, King Charles. We'll see what happens. But, the kingship in England's closest to our country that we know about. We don't really want to look at it. I don't really want to look at it as performance. So fortunately for us, Queen Elizabeth, in my opinion, was a great queen. Okay. Will King Charles be a great king? Well, I don't know. But you see, I'm not looking at it from the standpoint of performance. I'm looking at, hi, Gina. I'm looking at it from the standpoint of the position, right? The position that he holds and what that position does for me, not what it does for him. And that's where most people miss it in their own spiritual health and the kingdom of God. So when I went over, I've been over there and a number of times, and you go over there and I watch, and you go through and by Buckingham Palace, and all of us have probably seen online or on TV or something, Zion, where they have the guards there and they just stand there like 10 soldiers and they're not supposed to move or blink or breathe. And then the goofy people, usually tourists, not Englanders, not UK people. Not the British wouldn't do it, I don't think, but those stupid, probably Americans, go up and poke and try to get them to do something silly, and try to get them to react, and they don't. But the dignity of it, the palace, we went up and we saw all the things and just seeing all that, just the royalty of it, and the respect that the people had. And, I think that's all these hundreds of years they've had this royalty and the respect that they have for it. And yet these are not perfect people. They haven't been before Queen Elizabeth. She's, now that she's gone, I really cared for her. I think she's pretty perfect, but nobody's that perfect. But the respect that they have for the Queen and now the King, whether he's perfect or not, is something that's good for people, whether he deserves it or not. I like it. And the royalty and the dress and the hats and you even might, for us over here, we get a little like, whoa, bowing down or kissing a hand or whatever, and they bow to the Queen and bow to the King, and we go, oh my, all kinds of sorts. We can't. Well, if somebody did that over here, we'd just blow a gasket, wouldn't we? If anybody else. But over there they do that, and they have such respect and such honor, and I see that. And for us over here, it's like, oh my, I'm glad we don't have a king. In fact, my basic ancestry is English. There was some Scottish, and they probably had to be an Irishman in there probably somewhere through the years. But basically, as I trace back, most of it is English. The word Gray is an English name. And my mother's side, then there's a small town outside of London called Philby. And my grandmother's maiden name was Philby, and her ancestors came from Philby, England. So there were some mixtures and things like that throughout there. But generally speaking, they were English, and Kathy's got a little bit of Scottish in her, Zion. But then again, you can tell she's got some German in her too there on her mother's side. They were Sacs, hi, Tammy. They got some German in her, but me, so my ancestors, what they do, they left England, and some of them maybe to get away from the king, or maybe just to, find their fortune, who knows. But there were groups of people that got away because they didn't want to have a king. We read our history. They didn't want to have the king's religion or whatever it was. So we feel like we got the best deal. We got to come over here. We don't have a king. Yay. Like that. And now I look at it and I go, I don't know if this is working very well for me as a Christian. You know why, don't you? Because Jesus is a king. Jesus is a king. And I've never grown up around a king. I have never been around royalty. I don't know what it's like. I don't see the respect. I don't understand the thousands years of royalty and how people pass down the line. And when you read the history of them, they were a king or a queen or whatever, and they were king or queen whether they were good or bad. And people bowed to them whether they were good or bad. And they got to wear a crown whether they were good or bad. So it wasn't due to their goodness or greatness like we do over here, like you have to perform here. But there was a segment of royalty that didn't have to perform. It was the title. It was who they were. It was their lineage and all that. And people bowed and respected and stand in awe just in the respect to that. Well, it may not sit very well with our culture, but boy, is it good for us, since Jesus is a king. If I don't understand how to treat him, fortunate we got good TV cameras and technology. We can look at it on television, all about the funeral now, Queen Elizabeth, and when the king comes in and all that. But for years, when I was over there, those many times over there, you could go around the palace and all the things, and you could watch. And of course, you could watch on TV also. They had the weddings and all the pomps and circumstance and all that stuff. And you could see how these people treated their queen or treated their royalty. And they might not have deserved it, but you could tell on their faces they were in awe of these people who were really just people. But wow, it was something about these. This is our queen, or now this is our king. And the respect and royalty. Well, I didn't have that in me when I became a Christian. You know what? I didn't have that in me. I'd never bowed to anybody. I never had that awe. I never went, oh, there's the queen, or there's the king, or wow. I didn't have any of that honor in me. And so now when I see that, I go, I went over there, and I looked and I thought, I can learn from this. I can learn from these people, because they're not looking at it and saying he deserves or she deserves. He's looking at it and saying, that's who they are. They're royals, and we like having a king or a queen. They like it, as far as I can tell. I saw it in the news today. One heckler got tackled, just one. I mean, all of the people out there, how many people in this country would heckle? Yeah. One guy, and boy, he got tackled in a hurry, because that was not the mood of the people. The people want to honor their new king. And so, so these people, they enjoy it. They enjoy the bowing and the grace and the honor and the respect. And yet here we've got Jesus is a king, and guess what? He has a kingdom. Yeah, he has a kingdom. And I don't think we have any idea how to treat him. And probably it goes far beyond what we could learn from the Brits, but it is a beginning to watch them. And as you watch the royal funeral or all the things that they'll be in the news, keep an eye, not necessarily on who they are, whether they deserve to be, hi Marilyn, whether they deserve to be who, in wearing that crown or not, but just how people treat them. And then we realize Jesus is a king. And what do we have over here? We've got the sermons. We got the sermons where you're sitting in church and they begin to present Jesus not as a king, not as royal, not as respectful, but now he's your best friend, right? He's your best friend. And God, Zion, you were playing that game the other day where you had a group of people got together for the Chiefs game, and they had this silly game I'd never heard of. And well, I don't remember what it was. Some kind of guess. It's
like apples to apples, but Christianity.
A Christianity thing. And so
Christians like.
Yeah. And so I saw on there that you had to fill in the blank, and one of the questions was about Daddy God. How many times they call it Daddy God? And I've never used the word Daddy God, but a lot of people do.
Well, Sky Daddy.
Really? Sky Daddy? Oh my. So now let's say we go over there and I get to, hi Thora, and I get to meet the King Charles, and I walk up and, hi Daddy King. Hey Daddy King. He's going to look at me and I might be hauled away, and I should be, because none of them would even think of doing that. But in our culture here, we've got all kinds of things. Jesus is not the king. He's your best friend and he's your buddy. And, as we said, Daddy God, and now Sky, what is it?
Sky Daddy.
Sky Daddy. Oh boy. I'm not going to remember that, and I don't want to. So, as I'm talking to you, so we, like I said, my ancestry probably got away from England to get away from the throne. But now I see how good it is for me to see this and get this in me. I need this. I need to learn about royalty. They don't need me to learn it. They don't need me to even recognize it. I'm clear on the other side of the ocean. I can watch it on TV, or I can go over there. I've been over there and visit, or even other countries that have royalty. But it doesn't matter whether they deserve it. And I see Beth came in. It doesn't matter whether they deserve it. It matters whether I can get it, because I don't have an example on earth when in Jesus' day and before that, and you read the Old Testament, they had kings. They had kings. And guess what? When they came and announced that Jesus, you see it coming, that Jesus is the king of every king, they had some kings. And they said, you see that king, and that. Oh, we got kings everywhere. Well, Jesus is the King of Kings. That meant something. But now it's a little bit hard in our culture. And for me, when I say, well, he's the king of every king, and I can't find a king, never seen a king, never bowed to a king, and say, well, I don't know how to treat a king. I've never been around a king. And so you understand what I'm saying. It's not how I treat a king to make the king feel great. It's that I want to learn how to treat a king because it's good for my soul. It's good for my heart and my mind, because Jesus is the King of Kings. He's a king with a kingdom. And I had no example. And so when I was there and when I watch it, I watch how they do it, and and I'm not going to copy it, obviously, but how was I to know? How was I to know how royalty is treated? Even just the angle of it, and so it's been good, and you might want to do it too. Like, oh, and here's the reason why. This is just my opinion. You will gain more treating Jesus as a king, or you will gain more right now. I'm talking about right now in the kingdom. If you treat Jesus as a king, far more than you will if you try to make him your buddy. Or as I've heard people preach about, crawling up into the lap of Jesus or lap of God, come on, just crawl up into his lap. All right. I get it. We're such a hurting baby, immature culture that we got to view God as the daddy we never had. Okay, I get it. But for me, I've found my advancement in the kingdom of God is understanding his kingship has vaulted me farther into the kingdom, a lot more than just looking, I need a best friend, I need a buddy, I need a daddy God and all that kind of stuff, or a sky daddy. I don't, I'm gonna remember, I guess I got it now. And, so instead of making him my big brother and best friend, it's just, I get a picture of that. And now I understand why they say, he's your brother, he's your big brother, because we call it the family of God. We're the family of God. And so if we're the family of God, I'm in the family. And so what do they call Jesus? And to make it good for us. But they don't call him big brother to make him feel good. They call him big brother to make me feel good, right? So I feel really fit in. They call Jesus big brother, which is not in the Bible, family of God, but big brother. So I'll feel elevated. My big brother is Jesus. I'm elevated, right? Okay. I get it. It doesn't bother me at all because I understand that. But even in royal families, study them for yourself. If your big brother was the king, you still had to treat him like royalty. Now, maybe behind the scenes, they still acted like brother and sister and all that kind of stuff. But in public, you still had to treat him, if he was a king or her, but him, you still had to treat him like the king. And even in private, he could still be the king when he wanted to be the king. You can read it even in biblical times. There'd be a king and he'd have a brother. Well, the brother was important, but the king as brother was still king. You understand what I'm saying? So he might be your big brother, but he is still the king, even if we are in the family of God, right? And so I'm just saying that the idea of royalty and bowing and respect and that mentality is healthy, at least for me. I have advanced myself in the kingdom of God so much farther when I began teaching now 20 years ago. And I know Tammy knows it for sure, as she's watching that. Probably maybe it's been over 20 years, but when I began to get the huge concept of honoring God, not just you should honor God or let's honor God, but I mean the depth and teaching and digging into it and practicing it on purpose, I advanced myself. And I think Tammy would probably say too, all of us advanced, our family and our children advanced when we got the concept of honoring God. And it's still just as powerful today. I've taught it not that long ago, to a group of pastors and worship leaders, and it was so powerful to the worship leaders. They were just wowing. Oh my, because there they are, worship leaders, and didn't really have the concept of what they were really supposed to be doing. And so the idea of bowing before the Lord and honoring Him, and by the way, you know what worship, you might know this, is translated. It means to kiss the hand. Well, actually, if you really take it down to its smallest level, it's actually to lick the hand, but that's like like a dog licks your hand. If you have a dog and he's waited all day, or that dog's waited for you all day to come home, and you come home and that thing's licking you all over, licking your hand and everything. That's where they said, look at that dog. Well, you want to know what worship is, just check that dog out. So now we've got the King of Kings, and now I end up how I advance. And we Americans, now it's not our fault, is it? No, our culture, our beginnings, pilgrims or whatever, Puritans, pilgrims, whatever, okay, a lot of them left. Some left to make money, but, and explore. But, a lot of them left to get away from a king, which really wasn't, it's sort of the king, but to get away from the king's religion too. And so they wanted to be free and all that kind of stuff. So we get it. But I see Tammy saying since 1994, I began to teach on honor. Thank you, Tammy, for letting us know. So that's a long time. That's a lot of people too around the world. I've taught it everywhere I could in the world, especially to leaders and people. But anyway, it's not our fault that we grew up in a country without a king and thought we were doing ourselves a favor. Instead, we get to have a president voted out every 4 years if we don't like him, or in every 8, whatever. We think we're better off, and maybe we are. Our government has worked well up to recently, at least, and depending on what your opinion is. But we don't understand kingship at all, and we shy away from it. And so we would just flip. We just flip several times over and over. If we found out somebody, we said, well, they're worshiping they worship we just couldn't handle it. But the king is a man, and isn't it interesting that God, through all the ages, has never really been that upset that there were kings and they worshiped kings, as long as he was the King of Kings, as long as they weren't gods. Now, when some of the kings became gods and declared themselves of gods, okay, well, now we got a problem, don't we? But God handled it okay. God handled it. I don't think God minds at all that now we have King Charles. No. But he'd like to have a revival of the King of Kings in Great Britain, and I would too, and around the world, you would too. But the fact that we have an example, an earthly example of a royal system, is not that bad for me, because at least it gives me some visual that I can look to and kind of see these wonderful English people that still have pride in a system that they don't get much out of other than that. It's a stability that they've had for years and years and years of honor, stability, and respect. They don't get anything out of it standing there waving at the king this week, but it does something to their souls, something that stands true for years and years, just a moment of respect where everybody stands up straight and salutes or smiles or does the right thing with the right attitude. And I would sure like to see that something in our own country. And at least we know this, we'll finally see it, because the Bible says what? The day is coming when every knee will bow, every one of them. I remember going into a church. I'm about done now, but I remember going into a church, and so I took a group of people. Maybe Tammy, even you were there. Some of you were there. We went to some church anyway, and they were singing, as I think it was a song like "And We All Bow Down" or something about bowing. Well, most churches sing "We All Bow Down and Stand Up." Well, our group, we're about 15, 20 of us, and they always put us on the front row, when we minister. And when they sang "We All Bow Down," all our folks, from our church, they all bowed down. They went to a knee, or some of them went clear to the floor. And it kind of, some of them were aghast at that. And and so afterwards, the pastor got me, and he was he wasn't, I don't think it bothered him that much, but he was a little embarrassed for his church, who didn't know what to do, who looked like, what is this? Do we do? They kind of looked at each other like, I don't know. Are we supposed to do that? So afterwards, he got me off the side and he says, well, that was okay for your guys, but we don't bow here. And I said to him, that's okay. You will, because every tongue will bow. I mean, every knee will bow and every tongue confess. You may not bow now, but every knee will. So that's okay. You will eventually. And every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God. So anyway, they're regular folks. Yeah. But it's just good for me to learn how to do this by a visual. I got a visual. And so they may not deserve it. Who cares? Who cares whether they deserve it or not? It's that my heart watches. Hi, Rebecca. My heart watches the system and says, okay, how can I now when I pray tonight, which I will be praying tonight. When I pray tonight, I might watch the news today. Then I'll take that and I'll pray tonight and try to translate some of that visual of this whole nation honoring somebody else as royal, and translate that to the most royal that we have, Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God. Tammy's saying something here. I remember that. Several churches, we always bow down in honor, no matter what that church. Yeah. And they always kind of looked at us funny. Maybe, who knows though, maybe they learned something from it, right? Because we'd also stand there, right, Tammy? And they'd sing the song, I lift my hands up unto the Lord. And nobody lifted their hands except us. So maybe we were a good example. So anyway, as we look to the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, and then we look to the kingship of King Charles, we can enjoy it in that. And maybe we'll be glad we're not under that. I don't know. But look at it in a different way and say, I'm just going to catch what I can from it. And then I'm going to apply it to my great King, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, Jesus Christ. I hope that helped you a little bit as you watch that. Till next time, bye-bye.